And welcome everybody to Curb Your Sports Fandom. We've got Andy, Tom, Chesson, Ballpark Nation. Andy, Aggies were on the bye. Was it kind of nice to watch some football and not be worried about it?
I'd say that it was a pretty shitty football weekend. The games that you thought would be good weren't. It was kind of blah. I guess a nice way to put it. I didn't have the stress of worrying about how we were going to eventually blow a game. So there was that. That was nice, but I think it culminated. I realized how bad it was watching that Oklahoma-Tennessee game, and it's just, let's see who can do the stupidest thing next. No, we're going to do something even stupider next.
That was the poster child for, like, that's not that if you had aliens come down and you want to introduce them to football, that's not the game you would show them. It was sloppy and gross.
It was sloppy. There were, a lot of injuries. The refs were having way too good a time with themselves, and just coaches kept making boneheaded decision after boneheaded decision. But maybe that's what college football is.
Maybe it was. We're going to talk a little Texas. Let's look at the highlights from Texas, Vandy. It's a little longer highlight reel since, well, we only had to do one this week. So here we go.
Thank God I was born a Texas Longhorn. I hate them Red Raiders and them Baylor Bears. Let the Aggies keep their 12th man, I just don't care. So long, Nebraska, guess we beat you too much. And never forget, oh, you sucks. When the Lord comes to take me away, hope he lets me have just one more Saturday. Pretty Texas girl beside me, cold in my hand, cheering for the boys way up there in the stands. That's how I'd like to go, Lord, if that's all right. A winter down in Austin on a Saturday night. And I've seen Vince Young run for the roses, watch Ricky and Earl strike them Heisman poses, and I've witnessed the battle for that old Red River, and I've crossed back over most times as a winner. Yeah, I'm one of the chosen, whose blood runs burnt orange. Thank God I was born a Texas Longhorn. Yeah, we're part of the chosen, whose blood runs burnt orange. Thank God we were born Texas Longhorns.
You're going to notice, Andy, I kept all my highlights to the first three quarters because I don't want to talk a lot about the meltdown, because one, I don't think it was a meltdown. I think you're on your fourth and fifth defensive backs, plus the referees handed them 9 points. So,
I don't know that there's our college football teams in this year of our Lord 2025 that play 4 full quarters anymore. So I think you're probably fine.
Probably fine.
It was a good performance, against a good Vanderbilt team. I know that some of the narrative now is, well, all you did was beat Vanderbilt, and I don't think that's fair, as much as Vanderbilt was being hyped up going into this game. I think we talked about on this show last week that the things that Vanderbilt does well offensively feed right into what Texas does well defensively. And I think that played out. The difference for me was that finally Texas got off to a quick start, but then kept their foot on the pedal. Because I know, last week you got off, first possession was a long touchdown on a screen pass as well. Maybe more screen passes, Sark. I don't know I've heard that somewhere before, but I don't know, was that you or me? One of us has said that, and we don't get paid near what Sark gets paid to make those decisions. But I think it was a really quality win for your program. The things I took away from it is that Arch finally seems to have settled down and got comfortable with the idea that he's not going to get blocking for the most part from his offensive line. And so I've got to get the ball out quicker. I don't get to take 5 and 7 step drops. And Sark seems to have started calling offensive plays to reflect that reality. The other side is that your defense is an entirely different defense in Austin than it is outside of Austin so far this season. So that goes well for you, considering what 2 of your 3 last games are in Austin.
Yeah, it's interesting. on a lot of that stuff, and the bye can't be. The bye's coming at a perfect time too. Taffy should be
Especially if
back.
you're a defensive back.
Yeah, yeah. Like at first, I was like all kinds of angry, and then I realized like those two safeties where the slow motion of Sark going what the fuck, which was him at Pete Kwiatkowski. That was the 5th and 6th safety on the depth chart back there. They were just excited to be on the field. And
Sure.
oh, look, a guy ran past us.
Neat. Think about their parents. Their parents have been attending games all season and finally got to see them play.
Yes. And that was the play. And Diego Pavia, actually, he wasn't even the only guy open. There was the guy on the other side was as wide open. It was the definition of blown coverage. But I know I'm with you. It looked like Arch played free. He played he had some fun. He looked like he was moving around. I didn't know what to expect. I fully expected. I don't think it's possible in 2025 college football to rush somebody back from a concussion. I think that there's so many levels but we were both concerned when we did our show Thursday that was the case, that they would be rushing him back. And clearly he looked fine. And, now what I would say is you have 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia. And if this were a Mac Brown team, I would take all the comfort in the world for that. But we saw already this year, Andy, where they had 2 weeks to prepare for Florida and came out really flat. Now, were they really preparing for OU for those 2 weeks? We'll never know. But I don't know that I take much solace outside of getting healthier over this bye week.
Yeah, it really just depends. And I think the thing that has driven you crazy, based on the text conversations we've had in game, is just the lack of consistency. So it's a valid question for Longhorn fans right now, or, at least thinking Longhorn fans, which team shows up in Athens in 2 weeks? Is it the team that played Florida really, really poorly? Is it the team that walloped Vanderbilt? Is it the team that went toe-to-toe with Ohio State? Nobody seems to know. So it'll be really interesting to see what Sark does besides just get healthy to really game plan for a team that so far in the SEC has had your number.
Yeah, and this does that, and I don't think you can discount that part of it. There's always you can't win the big game until you do, and it does feel like a pretty big game. And looking ahead, the thing that I'm worried about actually is the Arkansas game, because it's a dynamic quarterback. And then you have the concern there of that's the ultimate trap game, because you have Georgia and you have A&M, and then in the middle you've got a 2-9 now Arkansas team, 2-8. Like, I don't know how I worry about that too going forward.
Well, I was talking to our friend Scotty McIntyre, and that game's in Fayetteville, yes?
No, it's in Austin this time.
Okay, so you're fine. You're fine. A couple of weeks ago, when it looked like A&M was going to try to blow that game, and he, pretty honest as an Arkansas fan about their shortcomings, but I watched a little bit of them against Mississippi State too, and what he said just keeps coming true. The defense gets down and they just give up, and you've got one player that you have to worry about playing Arkansas, Talon Green. If you can contain him, if you don't do stupid things like we did and continue to let the offensive linemen just run your edges off the field and leave open running lanes, you'll be fine in that game. You'll be fine in that game because your defense is at home and will be comfortable. And you'll be fine in that game because Arkansas is just not good this year, as witnessed by the fact that you had two teams playing between Mississippi State and Arkansas head-to-head who haven't won an SEC game in over a year, and Arkansas still hasn't won an SEC game in over a year.
I got some appreciation for Mississippi State too, Brandon Walker notwithstanding. So I was kind of glad to see them get that win. But yeah, I mean, we have obviously a lot of time to discuss a lot of that. I do want to move real quickly though to some more kind of non-Longhorn.
Arkansas, because we play. I'm sorry, but we play Samford before we play you.
They're our easy team.
Is Arkansas your Samford?
I guess so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was like, that's the only, because you know how miserable the internet's going to be that week of Texas A&M, and I think we should just review 80s cartoons for our show for that week.
Or I think we could have a live rewatch podcast of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, it's Thanksgiving.
I don't know who wouldn't tune in for that. Also, we can look at the underrated movie Dutch with
Ed O'Neill.
Yeah, Ed O'Neill and his future partner on the remake of Dragnet, Ethan Embry. They would go on to redo Friday, and they would be part. It was weird.
Once you work with Ed O'Neill, you always want to work with Ed O'Neill.
That's what I've heard.
So Ethan Embry.
We think there's going to be at least 3 more coaches fired. I think if I'm tracking our texts together correctly, Hugh Freeze is out at Auburn. I think if anything, because I see a lot of Sooner fans taking a lot of confidence out of that Tennessee win, and that just was like they literally had a touchdown going in and handed the Sooner linebacker the football. I mean, it wasn't even, and then it was the 6th the other way. It was the sloppiest thing you've ever seen. But I feel like with Freeze out, potential of both USCs losing their coaches, and there's going to be a couple more falling. I don't know that. I think this saves Brett Venables' jobs more than anything, because you don't want to be in a bidding war and realize just how far down the coaching totem pole you really are.
Yeah, and I think that Oklahoma, and I haven't looked at the rest of their schedule because I think they still have Alabama.
They do.
Which will probably be a loss for them, but their defense will keep them in games for the most part. It's the wrong time for a school like Oklahoma to decide to part ways with Brent Venables. And Brent Venables, to his credit, is winning the games he has to win outside of the Texas game to keep his job. He's going to be in the top 20, will probably move up a couple spots because they were 19 last week. Of course, the AP poll officially stops mattering Tuesday night, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, it is. It's also giving me 2008 vibes because they just stay in front of Texas despite the head-to-head.
Yeah, which is a whole different conversation.
Because they're 11 in the AP and they're 12 in the coaches, and we're 13 in both.
I think it's time that we could just get rid of the AP and the coaches poll. That'll never happen. So this is literally a windmill I like to tilt at periodically. Call me Don. But they're meaningless, and they're so rife with inconsistency and favoritism that I don't know what the point is. I'm perfectly okay with even taking the playoff rankings and bumping them up 2 weeks. So let's say mid-October instead of the first week of November. And that's all you care about. I know that ESPN and Fox and everybody else that shows college football teams needs to have those numbers in front of them.
You can't overrank Texas if you don't rank them at first.
But I don't think any team needs to be ranked.
That's what I mean, I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
And believe me, this last decade, A&M's been right up there with, hey, let's give them a number of the preseason and watch them just make it go away. Just magic.
Not this year.
Not quite as good as Notre Dame, but still right up there. So it's just the wrong time for Oklahoma to be looking for a coach. I think it's probably the wrong time for Auburn to be looking for a coach, but I don't disagree with the decision to part with Hugh Freeze, A, because he's human scum, but B, he just hasn't performed, and recruiting is going to start falling off. They don't play well in the NIL market with a lame duck coach. So I understand the need to cut ties, but best case, they're the third best program that now has an opening. And I think you'd argue that Penn State probably is a better job at this point than Auburn is.
Yeah,
just because there's an easier path for the playoffs because there's fewer good teams in the Big Ten.
You're also the flagship university in Pennsylvania of a football rich community versus in Alabama. You're not that football rich at the high school level, and you're the second best school, and there's a gap.
Oh, you're going to have a lot of farmers angry with you. You're not wrong, but it's not an attractive job. It's certainly behind Florida and LSU. So what you're likely going to see is some offensive coordinator getting their shot with that kind of job.
Sure.
And that's what you're going to see with a lot of these openings now is either retreads or guys getting their shot. And by and large, as much as people want to pretend that they have the magic secret sauce for picking a coach, and coaches are always great hires, 99% of coaches don't work out. And I think that's a real statistic. I'm not just making it up, because eventually they all get fired.
Mm-hmm.
Very few football coaches in Division I win a national championship. I mean, very few. I think that number is going to grow, but in the meantime, it's just this constant shuffle, the carousel that we're calling it now, of trying to get the right fit. And when you find that guy, you hold on to him for dear life. But even then, they wear out their welcome. They retire. They do whatever. The days of finding a Saban, I don't think those exist anymore. And so I think schools like what Texas has done with Sark and some other schools, I think A&M is getting there, is this idea of creating a football operation where the coach is almost interchangeable. In past years, if Mac Brown was to step down or get fired, you would expect your program to step back, and it did. I think if Sark was ever to leave, and this is not me breaking news, I don't think he's interviewing with the Titans. I didn't make that up for clicks. I think the football operation at Texas is going to survive and thrive with whoever they plug into to that role next. And I think that's how you're going to have to do this going forward. I don't know that every program has gotten that message yet.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. Just like everybody else, I'll be eating my popcorn, watching who lands where and what job. But there's only so many mid-major coaches you can go get with a track record of success that are going to wow your fan base, sell hope to recruits, wrangle up NIL in schools that it needs wrangling in. And so all that stuff has to almost be independent of who the head coach is these days.
Yeah, and to your point too, I know like a lot of Aggie fans are sort of worried that I don't think any of the jobs available are a job that Mike Elko leaves for. I think if Ohio State came open, Michael Elko would leave for that job. Like that's probably the best job. However, the downside of trying to even poach Mike Elko is you've got to wait till mid-January to do it, and think about everything that you've lost in that time period. You're going to lose all your NIL, your transfer window gets shorter, your December. Could we still do that December recruiting class thing? Like you're losing so much momentum by waiting. So I think that those two factors alone means Mike Elko is not leaving Texas A&M.
Yeah. I also think his wife doesn't want to leave, and that seems to be important.
Yeah.
She evidently has gotten on the local coaches show and said, we're not going anywhere.
Mom ain't happy, daddy ain't happy.
Well, it's not exactly making cookies, but
yeah,
like Sally used to.
Like
but
Sally
it's
used to do.
It's a firm vote.
Well, and I've heard actually the same thing about Sark's wife. Is she's not leaving. She's not leaving Austin for Tennessee. She might leave it for. She might leave it for LA. I don't know.
Nashville's lovely. Well, what if if you're going for a bridal shower, I hear it's a great time.
I know they have kids, right? So I don't know. They're old enough.
Jason Aldean's place serves some really mediocre barbecue. I can tell you that.
There's that. We got to talk a little baseball now. We're officially in the old hot stove. World Series. Look, it was I had a comment with a friend of the show, Chris Vitale, who does Ball 9, and he said this World Series needs to be the big FU to everybody who says baseball's boring. And I said, especially that yellow tux moron in Savannah, because of that's his whole premise behind the bananas is that baseball's boring. It really was a very exciting World Series. You feel it for Blue Jays fan. I mean, they were 2 outs away. That's even closer than the Astros were in 19. They were 2 outs away.
Yeah. Certainly disappointing for our friends north of the border, the Mike Donuses. You really hoped, if you're me at least, that they were going to pull that out, and it looked so close, so tantalizingly close. And as baseball often does, it's not the Otanis that beat you; it's the 250 hitting second baseman whose name I don't even know.
Yeah.
Now he'll never have to buy I don't know, margaritas. What do they drink in Los Angeles? High colonics.
Cheers
He'll
of
never have to buy his
independent
own high
filmmakers.
colonic again in Los Angeles, but and hopefully he doesn't get deported because I think he is of Latin descent, and that's the next city about to be occupied. But the Dodgers won. My initial instinct when I woke up and saw that, because I gave up at some point, was evil won. But the reality is they put together a team that was built to win. And the difference in the series, the difference in the playoffs was whatever money they're paying to Yamamoto was 100% worth it.
Damn, yeah.
I mean, his arm may fall off. It may have fallen off yesterday. I don't know. But even if he never pitches again, whatever money they're paying him is worth it because they won that title. In my mind, he was the difference. First guy in baseball history to win a Game 6 and a Game 7, to get 3 wins in a World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Just outstanding. And you just got the feeling, not only from the Dodgers, but the Blue Jays, that once he came in the game, it was not going to go well for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of any World Series that I remember in recent history, clearly should have been the MVP. We've made the case in 2022. It could have been one of 3 guys, right? But
Yep.
Yamamoto was that guy. And I actually told the same thing to Jessica. I was like, yeah, this game's over when he walked in, because you got to figure he could have at least given you 5 innings. And
I mean, it was just like when Garrett Cole got brought in Game 7 in 2019. Oh, wait, he didn't. It's too soon.
It's still too soon. It's still too soon. But just hats off to the Dodgers. But really,
Howie Kendrick's eligible for the Hall of Fame this year.
I hope that guy gets a haul of bullshit. But yeah, I was riding and dying with Mike Donis, filmmaker out of Toronto, for those of you who don't know him. And it was, when the game ended, I think I just said, sorry, man, I didn't text him for a while, because you just don't want.
No.
You don't want to hear anything.
No acknowledgement.
No. It's just yeah, let that go. But it does mean the hot stove season started. You're already starting to hear the talk. Friends of, like, I think it's funny, Andy, when I hear fans of really, really rich teams say they don't want a salary cap. To me, that's no different than really, really rich people saying, if you don't want to be on food stamps, get a job. I think it does misunderstand certain economic realities. And I'm not saying, like, I don't trust owners. There are lots of owners who don't spend anything. That's why I think you need a cap and a floor. But there are teams who can compete with the Dodgers, and those teams are 2 of them. And that's now the standard to go win a World Series. Because, by the way, they've now won 3 of the last 10. Like, there has to be some economic equality has to be addressed in the sport.
Yeah, and I noticed the Dodger fans, and congrats to them. It's great to win a World Series. I remember it from a few years ago. But the economic realities of having the TV market of Los Angeles and having an owner who's willing to spend should give you more balls in the hopper, for lack of a better term. It's not going to guarantee you win, because the Mets spent more money than the Dodgers did, I believe, this year. If not, they were like right there and didn't make the playoffs. So you do still have to have good players and have good management and develop your players and do all the things that other baseball teams do. But it eliminates the pain from making mistakes. The Astros are a mid to upper tier, not the top tier, but a mid to upper tier salary kind of organization. And the signing of Jose Abreu, which was a mistake in hindsight, delayed things. Where the Dodgers or the Yankees to make that same kind of mistake, they can wipe it out in the course of a season.
Yes.
And that becomes the difference, is that you don't suffer the penalty from bad baseball decisions quite in the same way that you do when you don't have the money to spend to get out of it. So that's a reality. I think the other part that you brought up is very salient, that there's got to be some penalty or some incentive, however you want to term it, for the owners of the Minnesota Twins and the Pittsburgh Pirates and a couple of other franchises, the Miami Marlins, to be competitive. Because I understand the argument that a Steinbrenner might make was, why do I want a salary cap and revenue share with a team that doesn't care to win?
Sure.
Matter of fact, I pay, through my luxury tax, I pay for some of their not spending. That money goes right into the owner's pocket. So it's multi-layered, and there's certainly got to be some sort of reform. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be done on the backs of the players, because ultimately in the battle of billionaires and millionaires, billionaires win. And that's why all of us are talking about a work stoppage about a year from today. Of some sort. And it's, not great times if you're a baseball fan, especially if you're a baseball fan of, you're Luis Garcia, for instance. Your career is pretty much over, but if you had any hope of coming back, it was going to be in the 2027 season, and he's pretty much not going to. That would be the earliest he'd come back. There probably won't be a season at least at the beginning. So is he done? Maybe he's done. I don't know. He's not going to be an Astro anymore, and we'll, mourn that a little bit. But there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to have to be, and I don't know what baseball looks like in 2028. And I don't think anybody really does, because I don't think it's going to look the way it does this year. I don't think it's going to look the way it does in 2026. And I don't even know what you do with a team like the Dodgers, who have found a way to circumvent the salary cap through creative financing, which all teams are eligible to do. The benefit the Dodgers have is their owners have no desire to sell the team. So having debt on their ledger doesn't matter 25 years from now. If you are, if you own the Kansas City Royals and you want to sell that team in the next 10 years, you can't afford to have $38 million, $308 million of debt sitting on your ledger, hoping that somebody's going to bail you out of that. That's not a thing that's going to happen. So I think there's got to be some reform there too, that the salary cap or the luxury tax or whatever it ends up being called at the end of the day has to kind of apply universally and can't be so easily skirted around with, again, just more money. You're mute.
There we go. Hey, at least I figured out how to fix it this time. But that's absolutely the thing is we have to. It's watching fans make these arguments though. Like again, it goes back to my same comparison of people not understanding why some people need food stamps, and it's not everybody that's not working. That it's a complex discussion, and I just keep going back to. I am old enough to remember when the NFL was the second game in town to Major League Baseball. And I believe a big part of changing that were two things. One, the Cowboys getting good helped, but then getting a salary cap helped. And basically taking a league first approach to how they did everything. And hopefully if there's going to be a salary cap and a salary floor, there's also going to be a change in structuring how the league markets itself. I don't have many hopes for that, but I think people think baseball is stronger than it is because we're still adjusting to a new paradigm in how television works. And so, yeah, Major League Baseball has seen a real boost lately in advertising revenue because there's fewer things to spend advertising on. So therefore, it's a supply and demand issue. But the ratings for the World Series still weren't great. Like there's still evidence out there that baseball is losing popularity to other sports, and they're going to need to figure all of that part of it out too. Otherwise, it's just going to be, a very rich sinking ship, but a sinking ship nonetheless.
Well, we probably won't live to see the end of it, but it won't be too far after that.
I'm going to live forever.
On happier news, Mauricio Dubon won a second Gold Glove, which should make him marketable because we don't need him and Ramon Urias, so one of them needs to go.
One of them needs to go. And isn't this the only time they've given out? Isn't this only the second time they've given out the utility player Gold Glove? Like, hasn't he basically won the only two that's been?
Yeah, it's a new invention or relatively new invention. I don't want to speak with certainty that it wasn't given out 3 years ago, but it's the Mauricio Dubon Memorial Trophy, which will be great for his kids.
Yeah, and he will. Yeah, I agree though that when we'll get
And when
way
he's
more.
playing for Oakland next year, or Sacramento, or Las Vegas, whatever that is, that'll be something he can carry around and show the youngsters. This
Hey,
is how you win.
apparently they're not there. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but the Athletics have decided to change the uniform for next year, and they're going to have jerseys with Sacramento on it. And I mean, I don't.
Which to me is just more of a, we're going to be here a little bit longer than 2.5 seasons,
Yeah,
guys.
it definitely feels that way. Speaking of, before we get out of here, okay, so we're now 2 episodes into Welcome to Derry. So on the one hand, yay, HBO releasing an episode for us early, but then making us wait 10 days. Andy, I think it's been fantastic. It's been some stuff I've never seen as a horror fan.
And that's saying something, because I consider you a horror encyclopedia. And usually if I run across something that's 3 years old, yeah, I saw that. Here's what it's about. You don't need to watch it, or do, because of this as that. I would dare say that is the first time I've seen a birth demon. I don't know another way to put that. But that was, if you were thinking that they were going to do too much character development in this episode and try to do some world building, nope, they kept with some of the really horrific, scary shit and went above and beyond things that had happened in the It stories so far.
Yeah, and we did see more connections to the Stephen King world building stuff, going back to Juniper Hill. Now, definitely saying yes, this is Scatman Crothers from The Shining. All that was kind of cool. But
I mean, he didn't say that he had the shine, but everything else.
Yeah, he's got a sense about him. But also, watching her chew through her own umbilical cord was definitely some shit I've never. Yeah. Yummy.
Yeah, for all of you who thought the Ed Gein story on Hulu was a little bit rough, I don't know that you don't want to have your finger on the fast forward button for that particular scene, because it was graphic, is a good way to put it. And but the thing that I would keep going back to, original, and it's hard when you're dealing with such well-known IP to be original. It's certainly keeping within the theme, and it's certainly a period piece for 1962. So I think they're doing that part really well. But you would tend to lean into, I think most filmmakers would tend to lean into, well, this is kind of the stuff they've done before in this franchise, and so we're going to kind of keep in that mode. And I think these filmmakers are going above and beyond that in the horror aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even seen Pennywise in clown form yet. Like, clearly we're seeing Pennywise all over the place. It's just we haven't seen him in clown form.
I think he was the Butcher.
Well, yeah, which is actually interesting. I'm curious if the Butcher is actually a character from 11/22/63, which was his time travel book I just finished, who in one reality murders his entire family. So we'll have
I just thought the whole interesting thing about, having variety after seeing the same people day in and day out was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and boy, that pickle jar scene was something else. I mean,
yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. Never seen that before. Well, that's great. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode today. We're going to be back on Thursday. I know you and I both have stuff on Friday, so we'll be back to preview A&M in Missouri. How you feeling about that? Just first blush.
It's a road game, so it's always going to be something I'm worried about. We're going against what's opened the season as their number 3 quarterback. Missouri's had quarterback injuries. It's a winnable game for A&M, but A&M's going to have to not play down to the competition. And I would like to say that at some point you go through a game like LSU where you make all your mistakes and you realize that if we just play better, we're the better team and we're going to win. And I think that was Elko's message at halftime during that game, is that you're a better team. You have better personnel. You're more together. But if you keep playing stupid fucking football, you're going to fucking lose. And that's why we're down by 4 right now.
Right.
And they went out and put their foot on the pedal and blasted, cost Brian Kelly his job. I don't think we're going to get Eli Drinkwitz to lose his job. I don't think he's in any danger. Maybe he is. But I think this is a game that A&M on paper should win, but there's always going to be a part of me in the back of my head that says this is going to be tough. And again, Missouri plays really good defense. You have an unknown quantity at quarterback who was a 5-star recruit. So it should be a challenge. I guess the good news is we're not playing a night game in Missouri, but I don't know that, the night game at Missouri means all that much.
Oh, I don't think it does either.
I kind of prefer the road games to be at 11 in the morning so we can just get them out of the way. But
yeah, I prefer most games to be 11 in the morning, but I'm an old man. Last question then. You're starting to see talk of the possibility that if Texas loses to Georgia or Texas A&M but keeps playing with the way everything's falling, they might still have an outside shot at the playoff with 3 losses. Your thoughts on that?
I have not wavered on the idea that Texas is still a playoff team. They're in playoff contention until they're not. I think Georgia's a challenge. I think that we might find out this season if Kirby Smart is just your Bill Snyder, and he might be, might not be. Kirby Smart's a great team or a great coach, and Georgia's got a great team, and there's been some success directly against Sark and his offenses with what Kirby does. But I think that you go in with a good chance to kind of write the script. Arkansas should be a win, provided you get healthy. I really hope that A&M wins all the games up until Thanksgiving, and then I don't have to care what happens. And they'll still care, but I don't have to care because at 11-1, it won't matter.
Yes. I think I would say you're at a 98% chance of getting in the playoffs right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But, you've got to beat South Carolina. You've got to beat Missouri. You've got to beat Samford.
Oh, the Gamecocks. Never mind. I don't care. No. Yeah. Next, when we preview that game, I'll tell my USC story on the show. But that does wrap us up today. For Andy, I'm Jim. This has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation. Have a great week, everybody.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.